Imagine discovering that the seeds of a deeply troubling personality disorder might be sown as early as toddlerhood. That's exactly what Professor Essi Viding, a leading researcher in the field, suggests about the early signs of psychopathy in children. Her findings, while groundbreaking, raise significant ethical and practical concerns. But here's where it gets controversial. How do we balance early identification and intervention without unfairly labeling young children? Psychopathy, a condition characterized by a lack of empathy, manipulative behavior, and a propensity for harmful or criminal actions, can sometimes be traced back to early childhood. Viding's research focuses on identifying the early markers that might indicate a higher risk of developing psychopathy later in life. It's important to note that spotting these signs doesn't guarantee a child will grow up to be a psychopath, but it does highlight the need for early intervention. These early signs are distinct from the typical misbehaviors of a naughty child, such as throwing tantrums or refusing to share toys. Instead, Viding and her team have identified specific behaviors that are more concerning. Children with these traits often exhibit conduct disorder combined with callous-unemotional (CU) traits. This means they lack remorse when hurting others, struggle to link their actions with consequences, and show little interest in making others happy. For example, if a child takes a toy from another kid and causes them to cry, most children would feel guilty upon seeing the other child's distress. However, a child with CU traits might not show any signs of remorse or concern. This lack of empathy is one of the red flags Viding's research highlights. To better understand the origins of these behaviors, Viding and her team conducted studies involving young children, including twins, to explore the influence of genetics and environment. They observed how these children responded to others' emotions and managed frustration. Brain activity and physiological responses, such as heart rate, were also analyzed to see how these children processed emotions differently. Viding identified 3 specific warning signs that children as young as 3 or 4 years old might display, which could indicate a higher risk of developing psychopathic traits. 1. Lack of emotional reaction to others' pain. These children don't feel bad when they see someone sad or hurt. For instance, they might not care if they steal a toy or make someone cry. 2. Difficulty connecting actions to consequences. They don't learn from punishments like timeouts or losing privileges and continue to engage in harmful behaviors. Not caring about pleasing others. Unlike most children who enjoy making their parents or friends happy, these kids focus solely on their own desires and don't derive joy from others' happiness. You do not suddenly develop a full-blown personality disorder on your 18th birthday. Some children exhibit these traits from a very young age, Viding explained to The Telegraph. While identifying these children early doesn't definitively predict future psychopathy, it does suggest they are at a higher risk compared to their peers. A study by Viding and her colleagues, published in the journal Restorative Neurology and Neuroscience, found that these psychopathic traits are strongly influenced by family genetics. Identical twins, who share nearly all their genes, were more likely to both exhibit CU traits compared to fraternal twins who share only about half their genes. The research also uncovered differences in brain activity among children with CU traits, particularly in regions like the amygdala, which is involved in processing emotions. No one is born a psychopath, and genes are not a blueprint. However, some individuals have a genetic makeup that puts them at higher risk, Viding noted. Despite the presence of these early warning signs, Viding emphasizes that there are steps parents can take to mitigate the risk of their children developing psychopathic traits. Here are 3 key strategies. 1. Warm and loving parenting. Studies show that adopted children who share no genes with their adoptive parents are less likely to develop psychopathy in a nurturing home environment, even if they have genetic risk factors. Positive reinforcement from caregivers can protect children against inherited traits that might lead to antisocial behavior. 2. Therapy. Working with a therapist can help children learn to manage their emotions and behaviors. Therapy can also provide parents with the tools to handle challenging behaviors effectively. 3. Early intervention. Addressing these behaviors as early as possible is crucial. The longer a behavior persists, the harder it becomes to change. However, interventions in adolescence and adulthood can still be effective, so it's not too late to make a difference. With any behavior, the more entrenched it becomes, the more difficult it is to intervene, Viding warns. But the message should not be that if you miss the first 5 years, it's too late. There is always hope for positive change. And this is the part most people miss. While the research is compelling, it's essential to approach these findings with caution and empathy. How do we ensure that children who display these traits receive the support they need without being stigmatized? What role should society play in addressing these issues? Share your thoughts in the comments below.